Hey everyone, welcome back to the Jeep Dive. We always try to bring you these fascinating stories, and today we're going to kind of unpack this whole idea of like belonging,
Mhm.
within a community, especially like a religious one. And we thought a really cool case study for this would be looking at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We're going to be diving deep into Elder Carl B. Cook's 2019 address, The Quorum, a Place of Belonging.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah, it's a really powerful message and tells this amazing story about brotherhood and unlikely friendships and, the power of shared goals. And it all starts with this one young man's search for truth.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about religion, honestly. Like, we
Yeah.
often get so caught up in like the beliefs and the doctrines, but at the end of the day, this human need to connect with others is just like incredibly powerful.
It's so true. It's like that sense of community, that shared purpose. It's a really fundamental part of the human experience, I think.
Yeah.
And that's where this whole idea of a quorum comes in. It's kind of central to this story. So before we get into the thick of it, could you give us a little background on what a quorum actually is?
Sure. So basically, in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a quorum is a group of men, and they're grouped together based on their age range, and also what's called priesthood authority, which I know can sound a little confusing to those not familiar with it, but it's essentially a system where men are ordained to different levels of service and leadership within the church.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like built-in support system where men can kind of learn and grow and serve together.
Exactly. It's like having this group of guys who are all in the same stage of life, you
Yeah,
know? They can share experiences, support each other, and really help each other become better men.
that's really cool. Okay, so let's head over to Botswana where our story begins. We have this young man named Andre Sabako, and he was really on this quest for truth. He'd never really prayed before, but something just prompted him to give it a try. And shortly after that, he had this chance encounter with the missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Oh, wow.
And they gave him a pass-along card with a picture of the Book of Mormon on it.
It's interesting how often those little things, those little interactions can end up having such a huge impact.
It's like those seemingly insignificant moments that can completely change the course of someone's life.
Mm.
And that's exactly what happened with Andre. He was really drawn to the Book of Mormon. He wanted to learn more, so the missionaries invited him to church. And he actually went all by himself to this branch in Botswana called the Mochudi Branch. I can only imagine how nerve-wracking that must have been to walk into this completely new environment where you don't know anyone.
Especially when you're already kind of searching for answers and feeling a bit lost, you
Yes.
know? Like, that takes a lot of courage.
For sure. But thankfully, this branch was incredibly welcoming. They really embraced Andre right away. He started learning about the gospel. He was baptized. And it was just this beautiful and powerful experience for him. But I think this is where it gets really interesting because, he's joined the church. He's had this amazing experience. But what happens next? How do new members like Andre really find their place and continue to grow within this new community?
That's where this whole idea of the quorum becomes so vital, especially for new members who might not have, family in the church already. The quorum kind of becomes like this surrogate family. It's a place where they can find guidance and mentorship and, most importantly, brotherhood.
Yeah, I think that sense of belonging is so crucial. And it reminds me of something that Elder Cook shared about his own life in his
Right.
talk. When he was young, his parents got divorced, and his father wasn't really around much. His mom worked tirelessly to support their family, but, it left him feeling kind of lost and alone.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking how many kids go through that kind of experience, like where they don't have that stable family foundation to rely on.
Yeah, it's a difficult reality for so many people. And Elder Cook talks about how it was during those really tough times that he really found solace in his quorum. He describes it as the place where he felt that sense of belonging. He called his fellow quorum members his brothers. And it's really powerful to see how that connection really shaped his life.
It just highlights how important these kinds of support systems are, especially when people are going through difficult family situations.
It's almost like these parallel journeys.
Mhm.
Elder Cook finding this support in his quorum during his challenging childhood, and then Andre, this young man in Botswana, discovering that same sense of belonging after joining the church.
It really does show you how universal these human needs are.
Okay, so let's go back to Andre and his story, because his conversion had this incredible ripple effect. He started sharing his newfound faith with his friends, and four of them ended up getting baptized too. So now we have this core group of five young men, all new to the church, all supporting and learning alongside each other.
It's like that saying, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, even though they were new to the faith, They found strength and encouragement in that shared experience, and it didn't stop there. It's incredible how this small group started to grow.
It really is. It's like a perfect example of how personal invitations and changed lives can be such powerful motivators. It's that same principle we see in the early days of Christianity, like when Andrew brought his brother Simon to Jesus or Philip brought Nathaniel. It's that personal connection, that genuine enthusiasm that can make all the difference. And within 2 years, their group had grown to 12 young men, all active in the church. And here's the really remarkable part. Each of these young men was the only member in their family.
Wow, so they didn't even have that like family support system at home to kind of, reinforce their faith. It really shows how much they found a sense of belonging and purpose within this new community.
Yeah, it's really quite amazing. But they didn't do it entirely on their own, of course. There were some key figures who played a crucial role in nurturing this group of young men.
Oh yeah, like who?
Well, their branch president, President Recuela, he was a constant source of support and guidance. And there was also this senior missionary couple, Elder and Sister Taylor. They were there every step of the way, offering mentorship and encouragement.
It sounds like they had a really strong support system within the church community.
They did. And there was another individual who made a huge impact on their lives, a quorum leader they called Brother Junior.
Brother Junior, I love it.
Yeah, he was just this amazing guy who went above and beyond to support these young men. He'd invite them over to his house for like extra study sessions. He'd offer personal mentoring, just spend time with them, build those bonds of brotherhood.
It's often those like informal gatherings, those moments outside of the formal church setting that really create the strongest connections.
Exactly. Sharing meals, having fun, just being together, that's where real connection happens. And Brother Junior, he didn't just focus on teaching. He really encouraged them to like put their faith into action,
Oh, so.
Well, he'd pile all 12 of them into his truck.
Wow.
And take them out to visit other members, people learning about the church, anyone who needed a helping hand.
That's so cool.
It was all about empowering them to live their faith and make a difference in their community.
And what a great example for them to follow.
Right. And he had this really simple but powerful message that he'd always tell them. He'd say, share what you do know, even if it's just one or two things.
I love that.
He understood that even those who are brand new to the faith have something valuable to offer.
It's not about having all the answers. It's about being willing to share what you've learned and let the Spirit work through you.
Exactly.
So what happened? Did these young men actually start sharing their faith?
Oh, they did. They were so excited to share what they'd learned. They were out there teaching, praying, serving others. And in doing so, they actually strengthened their own faith and found so much joy in the process.
It's that whole principle, action strengthens faith.
Yeah, the more you live the principles you believe in, the more deeply rooted they become in your heart and mind.
It's inspiring to see how their faith really motivated them to serve.
Yeah.
And it's even more remarkable when you consider what they set their sights on next.
Mm.
All 12 of them decided they wanted to serve missions.
Wow.
Which, given their family situations, was a huge commitment.
That's incredible. It's a real testament to their dedication and the power of shared goals, They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they had each other's support, and that made all the difference.
They were like a band of brothers united by their faith and this desire to share it with the world.
Exactly.
So did they all end up serving missions?
Well, 11 of the 12 were able to, and they went out and spread the gospel to even more people, and the ripple effect just continued, Their families, their friends, the people they taught on their missions were all touched by their message and their example.
It's amazing to see how one small group of young men, connected by faith and friendship, can have such a wide-reaching impact.
It really shows you that even small acts can create a ripple effect that extends far beyond what we can imagine.
Now, I know some people listening might be thinking, well, that's a great story, but that kind of growth probably only happens in certain parts of the world, right?
Yeah, that's a common assumption, but it's actually not true. Elder Cook addresses this directly in his talk.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he emphasizes that the principles at work here are universal. A single person reaching out, making a connection, sharing their faith, that can spark incredible growth anywhere.
So it's not about geography. It's about the power of human connection.
Precisely.
That's so encouraging. It means that no matter where we are or what our circumstances are, we can all make a difference.
And that brings us back to Elder Cook's central message, Quorums and really any kind of supportive community can be such powerful places of belonging, gathering, and growth for anyone.
It's about creating those spaces where people feel seen, heard, and valued regardless of their background.
Exactly.
And what's really cool is that this particular group, this band of brothers, as they call themselves, they actually remain close, even after their missions. Even though they were geographically scattered, almost a decade later, they still support each other, stay in touch, and maintain those strong bonds of brotherhood.
That's
It
amazing.
just goes to show that the connections you forge through shared experiences and faith can really last a lifetime.
It's not just about meetings and programs, it's about building genuine, lasting relationships that provide support and encouragement throughout your life.
So as we kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive into the idea of belonging, what are some key takeaways that you think our listeners can really apply to their own lives?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that we often underestimate the power of those simple acts of friendship and sharing.
Right. It's not always about like these grand gestures.
Exactly.
It's about those everyday moments where we can just, you know, reach out to someone,
Exactly.
offer a kind word,
Yeah.
share something that might resonate with them.
And you never know when that simple act might spark like a whole chain reaction of positive change in someone's life.
It's like that butterfly effect. Even the smallest actions can have these huge ripple effects.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about impacting others. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions, no matter how small they may seem, can really make a difference in the world around us.
So I guess the question is, what kind of ripple effect do you want to create?
That's a great question. And I think Andre's story really highlights the power of belonging and connection. We've talked a lot about brotherhood today and about this specific example of a quorum within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But I think the underlying principles here really apply to all of us, no matter what our faith or background is.
Oh, absolutely. We all crave that sense of belonging, that feeling of being part of something bigger than ourselves.
Whether it's a religious community, a social group, a volunteer organization, or even just a close circle of friends, having those connections where we feel supported and understood, it's essential to our well-being.
It's like finding your tribe. Those people who get you, who support you, who challenge you to grow.
And as we heard from Elder Cook's own experience, those connections can be especially vital when we're going through tough times, when we're feeling lost or alone or just need someone to lean on.
It's in those moments that having that support system can make all the difference in the world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the idea of belonging, I hope our listeners are walking away with a renewed sense of the power of connection and the importance of creating those spaces of belonging in their own lives.
Me too.
Because like Elder Cook said, these principles are universal. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you believe, or what your circumstances are.
You can always find ways to reach out, to connect with others, and to create those ripple effects of kindness and belonging.
So if you're feeling a little lost or disconnected, I encourage you to think about what kind of band of brothers or sisters you could be a part of, or even help to create. Where could you offer that welcoming hand, that listening ear, that act of service that makes a difference?
Because at the end of the day, we all need each other. And it's in those moments of connection that we truly find our place in the world.
That's beautifully said. And on that note, I think we'll wrap things up here. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep seeking truth, keep connecting with others, and keep creating those ripples of belonging